Last night's Good Morning America descended into unprecedented chaos when Helen Mirren was escorted from the ABC studios after George Stephanopoulos questioned her relevance in modern media and suggested she was clinging to past glory instead of gracefully retiring. But the 78-year-old dame didn't leave quietly. She delivered a scathing destruction of ageism in morning television that left Stephanopoulos' journalistic credibility in tatters. What started as promotion for Mirren's new Netflix series would expose something deeply troubling about how morning shows treat older female guests. But the real story began during the pre-show meeting, when producers revealed their true intentions for the interview. The Times Square studios had been fraught with tension since Mirren arrived at 5 a.m. for preparation. The Oscar-winning actress had specifically requested to discuss her new role as a tech CEO in a cutting-edge thriller about artificial intelligence. But during the pre-interview briefing, producers kept steering toward questions about aging gracefully and knowing when to step back. A makeup artist later revealed that Stephanopoulos had been overheard saying, "Let's see if the British grandma can keep up with real news pace." They prepared a segment comparing her early career photos to current ones, titled Then and Now. Therefore, the ambush was calculated from the start. But what Stephanopoulos didn't know was that Mirren had dealt with American media's ageism for decades and had finally decided enough was enough. The warm-up producer had been making jokes about senior moments and asking if Mirren needed extra time to get to her chair. But Mirren sat in the green room, perfectly composed, her steel blue eyes holding the intensity that had made her unforgettable as Queen Elizabeth. The show began with its typical mix of news and lifestyle segments. Stephanopoulos delivered political updates with his trademark seriousness, then seamlessly transitioned to lighter fare. He made several comments about the energy of younger generations and how experience sometimes needs to make room for innovation. His co-hosts Robin Roberts and Michael Strahan seemed uncomfortable with his tone, exchanging worried glances. But Stephanopoulos appeared energized by his upcoming interview, making references to Hollywood's refusal to accept natural aging and when legacy becomes baggage. Therefore, by the time they returned from commercial, he'd already poisoned the well for Mirren's appearance. "Please welcome Academy Award winner Helen Mirren," Robin Roberts announced warmly, clearly trying to set a respectful tone. Mirren walked out with regal bearing, her silver hair gleaming under the studio lights. The live audience applauded enthusiastically, many standing immediately. She greeted Robin and Michael warmly, but when she reached Stephanopoulos, her handshake was notably brief and her expression cooled considerably. "Helen, 78 years old and still working. Don't you think it's time to enjoy retirement? Leave room for the next generation?" Stephanopoulos asked immediately, not even pretending to start softly. Mirren studied him for a long moment, her theatrical training evident in the pause. "George, you're 63. Are you planning to retire soon? Or does ageism only apply to women?" she asked calmly. "That's different. I'm a journalist," he started. "And I'm an actress. We're both professionals. Yet you're questioning my right to work based solely on age. Why is that?" Mirren interrupted. Therefore, the confrontation was immediate. Robin Roberts tried to intervene. "Helen, tell us about your new series." But Stephanopoulos cut her off. "I'm just saying what everyone thinks. At some point, shouldn't older actresses accept smaller roles?" "Step aside gracefully," he pressed. Mirren stood up slowly, her movement deliberate and powerful. "Step aside. I've won an Oscar, for BAFTAs, for Emmys, and a Tony. I'm at the peak of my abilities. But you think I should step aside because I'm 78? That's not journalism, George. That's misogyny," she said. "This isn't about gender," Stephanopoulos protested. "Isn't it? You've had men in their 80s on this show and never once suggested they retire. Clint Eastwood, Martin Scorsese, Al Pacino. You celebrate their longevity. But when a woman my age continues working, suddenly it's unseemly," Mirren observed. But then she revealed something devastating. "Your producers asked me to prepare for questions about my skincare routine and how I stay young. For male guests my age, you ask about their expertise and wisdom. See the difference?" she asked. Michael Strahan looked genuinely appalled. Helen, that's not. It is, Michael. And you know it. This show treats older women as curiosities, not professionals. You discuss our appearance, not our accomplishments. Our age, not our art. Mirren interrupted. Therefore, she moved closer to Stephanopoulos' position. You want to know what's really happening here? You're threatened. A woman my age with more vitality and relevance than you terrifies you. So you try to diminish me. But George, darling, you can't diminish what you can't match, she said. This is getting personal, Stephanopoulos said, his face reddening. You made it personal when you suggested I should retire based on nothing but age. Let's discuss your career, shall we? You've been recycling the same political connections for 30 years. When's the last time you broke actual news? When's the last time you did anything but read teleprompters? Mirren asked, but then she pulled out her phone. Want to see something interesting? These are emails from your staff. They're embarrassed by this segment. They warned me you'd been fixated on my age. One called your approach creepy and discriminatory. Your own team thinks you've lost perspective, she revealed. The audience gasped. Several people began recording. But Mirren wasn't finished. You know what else they told me? That you insisted on the then and now photo comparison. That you wanted to discuss my appearance more than my work. That's not journalism. That's tabloid garbage, she said. Security, Stephanopoulos called out suddenly. You're having me removed? For what? Exposing your ageism? Mirren asked incredulously. For disrupting the broadcast, he claimed. Therefore, as security approached, Robin Roberts stood up. George, this is wrong. Stay out of this, Robin, Stephanopoulos snapped. But Mirren raised her hand to the security guards. I'll leave. But first, let me tell your audience what you don't want them to know, she said, turning to the cameras. This man claims to be a serious journalist, but he spent the last week obsessing over my age rather than researching my work. He's more interested in my wrinkles than my talent. He represents everything wrong with how media treats older women, she declared. The security guards hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. But Mirren continued. To every woman watching who's been told she's too old, who's been dismissed because of her age, who's been reduced to her appearance, you are not too old. You are not irrelevant. You are not required to disappear for anyone's comfort, she said. Remove her now, Stephanopoulos demanded. Therefore, as security began escorting her, Mirren delivered her final blow. You know what's ironic, George? Your wife Ollie is 54. In 24 years, she'll be my age. Will you tell her to step aside too? Or is your ageism reserved for women who aren't married to you? She asked. The question hung in the air like an accusation. Stephanopoulos went pale. As Mirren was led away, she called out, Oh, and George, that Botox isn't fooling anyone. At least I'm aging naturally while you're desperately trying to stop time. Who's really the one who can't accept aging? She said. The studio erupted in chaos. The audience was divided, some applauding Mirren, others shocked by the confrontation. Robin Roberts looked furious with Stephanopoulos. Michael Strahan seemed disgusted. The show cut to an extended commercial break. Within seconds, #Mirren exposes ageism was trending globally. The video of security escorting her out went viral immediately. But the conversation transcended typical morning show drama. Major women's organizations condemned GMA's treatment of Mirren. Actresses over 60 released statements of support. Meryl Streep called it a watershed moment for older women in media. Jane Fonda praised Mirren's courage. Glenn Close revealed similar experiences on morning shows. The solidarity was overwhelming. But the most damaging response came from within ABC. Multiple female employees came forward with stories of age discrimination. They confirmed a pattern of different treatment for older female guests versus males. The systemic sexism was undeniable. Disney executives, ABC's parent company, launched an immediate investigation. Sponsors targeting women over 50 withdrew support. The show faced potential discrimination lawsuits. The financial implications were staggering. Stephanopoulos attempted an apology the next morning. I respect Helen Mirren and all working women, he said stiffly. But Robin Roberts' cold expression beside him told the real story. The show's dynamic was irreparably damaged. Meanwhile, Mirren's Netflix series premiered to massive viewership. Women of all ages tuned in specifically to support her. Critics praised not just the show but her stand against discrimination. She became a symbol of resistance against ageist media. Therefore, the incident sparked industry-wide changes. Morning shows began examining their treatment of older female guests. The casual ageism that had been acceptable became problematic. Policies changed. Practices evolved. Mirren released a dignified statement. "I didn't intend to create controversy. But when a journalist suggests a woman should retire simply for aging, silence becomes complicity. We must challenge ageism wherever we find it, especially when it comes from those who should know better," she said. The impact on Stephanopoulos was devastating. His reputation as a serious journalist was destroyed. He became known as the man who tried to retire Helen Mirren for being old. His political sources distanced themselves. His credibility evaporated. Years later, GMA would implement strict anti-discrimination policies directly resulting from the Mirren incident. Training on age and gender bias became mandatory. The show that had embodied casual sexism was forced to evolve. But that morning, all anyone saw was Helen Mirren being escorted out by security for refusing to accept ageist dismissal. She'd been kicked off the show, but she'd kicked down barriers that had stood for decades. She'd exposed how even mainstream journalism could perpetuate discrimination. At 78, she'd stood against institutional ageism and won, not through violence or vulgarity, but through dignity and truth. She'd proven that age is not a limitation but an achievement, that experience is not obsolescence but excellence. Stephanopoulos had tried to diminish her as an aging actress who should retire. Instead, he'd been exposed as an aging journalist who should evolve. He'd attempted to make her seem irrelevant, but had only revealed his own irrelevance in a world moving past casual discrimination. The security footage of Dame Helen Mirren being escorted from Good Morning America became iconic. Not as a moment of shame, but as a moment of strength. A woman maintaining perfect dignity while being removed for the crime of refusing to be disappeared. And George Stephanopoulos, who'd built his career on serious political journalism, would forever be remembered as the man who called security on a 78-year-old woman for pointing out his sexism. He'd tried to discuss aging gracefully, but had aged disgracefully in real time, exposed as someone who confused discrimination with discussion.